Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Lines podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Watson, on this wonderful Tuesday evening. Are we live? Are we here? Is it working? Who knows? Those are all the important questions. Do we have a good Wi-Fi connection? Who knows? You have to pass the bill to find out what's in it, right? You have to pass the bill. You have to go live to find out if you're live, basically, is what's happening. So, we will see. I hope everybody's having a wonderful evening tonight. Lot going on. I guess it's working. So we'll just go with that. We will just go with that and share some info. Now, StreamYard, whenever I can't add comments. I used to be able to add comments. And I was having some camera issues also, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Connection is unstable. Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, I mean, it's about it. It is about it what it is. It's about it what it is. It's been a sort of interesting, weird, sad, controversial couple of days here. Today is Tuesday, so yeah, the camera was a little bit better before, right? Is it look, I mean, is it a little bit blurry or is it doable? Right? Is it good enough? Good enough? The Wi-Fi used to be here in the room and then we moved it. Somebody moved it. Wasn't me. The collective, we moved it. So I don't want to move too fast and ruin any sort of Wi-Fi. I want to be slow for the Wi-Fi and the words that are coming out of my mouth. We're going to do a little bit of a hag watch today. We've been doing the hag watch on XF's channel, thankfully. He's been a wonderful tour guide. I have been happy to assist, and this hag watch has been going on for about 2 years now. I hope it's not rubbing off. It's not rubbing off yet, I don't think. Hopefully not. So there's a lot going on here. And so we're going to listen to some of the things that the hag has been saying, who we refer to, who is Heather Cox Richardson, of course, as you all know. And we've been deconstructing her stories that she tells. We've been deconstructing them here on this channel for probably close to that time, maybe within the last year. So we're going to keep doing it, right? We're going to do the heavy lifting. I would like to go to what she had shown on Friday. There is obviously a lot going on. And you know, in the virtual simulacrum that we see, you know, it's the bifurcated reality online, right? So depending upon the social media platform that you're using, you are split off, and then depending upon what you sort of the things that you believe and the things that you follow along with or that you would agree with, then you are getting more of that, right? The confirmation bias, of course, but people staying within those echo chambers. But then something like this mass trauma event that occurred with the public assassination of Charlie Kirk, it has affected people in different ways, but yet some people in same ways. And this is the turning point, right? So this is going to, the way that we see the next few weeks go by will tell us a lot, and doesn't necessarily make it easier, but there's a lot of things for people to consider. We spent so when I came on here on last Wednesday, the day that Charlie was murdered, and it was very emotional, and it still is. It still is. And I think what was strange or predicted, right? Predicted. We aren't surprised, but you have a demographic of people on Facebook who you know personally who are compelled to comment on Facebook. It's strange. It's strange. Tis where we are. Tis where we are. People are victims too of their circumstances. We're all victims in different ways of I mean, we all succumb to propaganda and different belief patterns and things that we buy into, depending upon what works for us, you know, the sort of what we gain, you know, if the juice is worth the squeeze, and it's almost to that cognitive disequilibrium, right? So when you receive information, if it's then you have to filter it, and you have to decide if you're going to absorb it as your own, or this is the discernment process, right? You're going to receive it as your own, or you're going to not. And if you are, you're doing an evaluation of, is it worth it? Is it too painful to take this on, right? Is this too painful to take on? Versus, you know, accepting it as a new belief pattern or something new. And I think that during like an awakening, where I think I'll speak for myself, but I think that there was a period there, and I talked to some of my older friends who have gone through the awakening earlier, you know, whether it be sort of maybe like in the 90s, and then in 2012, of course, I think 9/11, obviously for you know, people that are a little bit older than me, because I was in high school at the time, and then 2012 was a point of like an awakening, and then probably with, you know, probably with Trump's first term, and then of course with the pandemic and COVID and the lockdowns and such. So people have had paradigm shifts, right? Where they're insatiable for information and they're just trying to learn and understand. And then sometimes that window closes. And then it's just more of a skeptical, or they're not buying into new information. And So it's been interesting to see people, because it's, on Telegram, where my volunteerism lies. And I feel like my contribution can be based on the different voices and community and positivity. And the voices that then are on X as well. But these and YouTube as well. But these, the people, the content creators or the experts. You have someone like a financial person, maybe like Alex Craner, for example, or Tom Luongo, who I generally agree with because I think they have more of a holistic view that I would align with, as opposed to other people who consider themselves to be geopolitical analysts who are on Telegram and also on X and YouTube, who are very much in the Israel, Palestine, Gaza conversation, very in tune with what's going on. And what's so key about like XF's work, for example, the way that he has analyzed it and shared that, is just as in the United States there's an interleague conflict, there is one in Israel as well. And that, Netanyahu has been in power for a long time. And they're not all on the same page about what has happened and what it appears. I never say that word, and now I'm going to say it now. That's stupid. I'm not going to do that. Now it would appear that they're moving forward with something now. So I spend a lot of time taking into consideration these bodies of work, this influence, this information, this advocacy, right? I spend a lot of time just because it's part of the conversation, it's part of the work, it's part of the space, it's part of the history of the US's involvement in foreign conflicts. And I'm very aware of all the things. I had just started following along, so I'm probably more familiar with the Ukraine-Russia SMO as opposed to like Syria, those, Afghanistan, Libya. So then when I go, so I'm aware of all of this. And then when I follow our Democratic Party propagandists, for example, like the hag, Heather Cox Richardson, and they don't speak about these foreign relationships or affairs. She calls it a rules-based order when it wasn't, it's international law. When did it become a rules-based order? And who called it that? So very in tune with, again, the Democratic Party propaganda. So although she won't speak out about Gaza, she has been very hooked into the narrative about Ukraine. Russia bad, Ukraine good, Zelensky good, Putin bad, Trump Russia agent. We have to we have to be on top of Russian disinformation. She does this whole song and dance. So it's odd that she can't speak, that she just does this sort of these main things, just this mainstream copy and paste from from WAPO or Politico, or just the New York Times. It's just these. So so I know that she's not speaking about sort of these other things. And so when something like this happens, and it happened during like the election when people were criticizing Trump and criticizing MAGA and Trump supporters and going all in for Kamala, forgot about what happened to Biden. And I'm thinking about a few distinct people who I know in real life. Don't, not like maybe people I went to school with, or people that, maybe I saw more frequently at one time, but don't really anymore, I guess is what I'm referring to. They have decided to, again, become very, very keyboard warrior-esque, and stand up for, basically calling out, one person I'm thinking of is calling out Christians, for supporting racism and white supremacy. Just broadly, just in general. Riding the wave of the public assassination of Charlie Kirk. Just riding that wave. Lecturing the mourners. And they come on and they're so virtuous, and they're, I didn't want Charlie to die, but now that he did, he was a gun advocate, he basically, and he was, he was a racist, and, he created division. Which is not true. It's not his problem. If division is created also in large part to the media, mainstream media. Yes, Charlie had a media company. Yes, he was part of he had a platform. He did a podcast. I don't know if his company is technically a media company. I'm just saying, yes, he had a platform that he created with people's help, that anybody can do. Anybody can go create a platform, or can create a podcast, and have a platform and have a voice and do the work and garner the support to work on projects and do things. But they're so virtuous, but they don't seem to really nail it on the head, It's really just always punching down. They're always in defense mode. They're always in, I'm the victim. And they wouldn't agree with that. It's the gaslighting, and they wouldn't agree that they're the victims. They would could probably continue to lash out or whatever. So we have to be, jabbed in the eye left and right, all the while there is a tremendous amount of content and support for Charlie's work, for what he did and what he brought to the table, in truth, not what people say about him. And they would say that about people that already have their mind made up, but that's the thing, is that with the virtue, and unless you're out talking to people, if you're just doing things virtually, you're going to keep getting the messages that reinforce what you think. And everybody is entitled to that perspective. But you're not doing the work. I hate to tell you. I'm speaking to the people that are just so offended and feel so compelled to defend what? What are you defending? I mean, call out the person that you want to call out. You want to call out Pastor Block, whatever his name is? Call out the people you want to call out. You want to call out, a pastor who maybe is racist? Go ahead. Name names. You want to call out an organization that's actually practicing white supremacy, actually is founded in some sort of whatever's written into their bylaws? Call them out. But don't think that you're doing the work by just broadly running a narrative. You're running a script that someone gave you. Let's get to the clip, shall we? I feel like I have to talk in slow motion because of the dumb connection. Let's see. Let's I don't know if that makes a difference. All right. So Heather Cox Richardson did not speak about Charlie Kirk's murder on Wednesday, the night it happened, and she didn't talk about it on 9/11 the next day. But she did talk about it on Friday. So let's go to what she said. Now, if you remember, just all the information that had come out on Friday. Okay? Put on our memory caps. Okay. Okay, we're only going to watch like a little bit of it. Okay? Can I go big on this?
Hey, folks. Hey, folks. Hey, folks. All right, let me get into some of your questions. I'm going to jump in. Interesting week that we have had here. Let me start with a bunch of questions and try and pull them together.
What the heck? Ugh.
Hey, folks. Welcome to the end of quite a week in American politics. We have Kathleen from Seattle here, and I can't pronounce that one. North Totowa, North Carolina. That's cool. Meridian, Idaho, Bedford County, Grapevine, Texas. Hey, my friends in Grapevine, Oswego, New York. That's a famous town. Metro Detroit. I've been reading about Detroit today. Detroit is a cool town. I guess you probably know that. Chicago, Missouri. I wanted to write a book about Missouri. Framingham, Mass. I visited Framingham, Mass this week. Chica, California, Lake Forest, California, Canada. You know what? I am reading a biography of Champlain right now. Fascinating. And we just got to the settlement of Quebec. Really days, but Wednesday, I believe, a right-wing activist named Charlie Kirk was shot at a college in Utah and died from his wounds. And in the immediate aftermath of that, which, it's a little ironic that last time I did one of these, I said, there's one thing that I won't write about and I won't talk about, because never is it a good thing under any circumstances. And that, of course, was violence by guns, death by gun. And this is no exception. I mean, it's a non-starter, but it happens in the United States, especially. So what was interesting to me was what happened in the aftermath of that horrific shooting. And I don't mean for Mr. Kirk's family, who he has apparently a young wife and a couple of young kids, and family, I'm sure, elsewhere, for whom this is an unmitigated tragedy. But for the way that the United States looked at the Kirk shooting, because you have to remember that for 2 days, we had no information. And let me just say again, I always say this, but it's important to remember that anytime anybody is trying to get you to make a snap decision about something based on fear, unless your house is literally on fire, they're trying to manipulate you. And I always use as an example of that the kind of scams that your employer always warns you against, or your family warns you against. If somebody says to you, you have to do this now, or you're going to lose your Social Security, or your bank account's going to be compromised, or whatever, they are trying to manipulate your fight or flight responses. And this we saw in a really, really big way, because immediately after an event happens, we don't know. We don't know. Even the first announcements that come out, you don't know. And you think of the times that in very famous cases, there has been real misinformation, either on the part of the perpetrator or somebody made a mistake or whatever. And you got to take a breath and see what's going to happen. So what happened is, in the immediate aftermath of this horrific shooting, the radical right doubled down on the idea that this shooting was by somebody, as they said, on the left. And once again, let me reiterate that in the United States of America, the vast majority of Americans are in the middle. They're in what we call the liberal center. And what that means is they believe in a government that will protect the rights of the individual to become whatever that person wants to be. So that usually means regulating business, providing a basic social safety net, promoting infrastructure, protecting civil rights, and making sure there is some kind of a rules-based international order, so that we don't have to worry about going to wars all the time, as many countries do. I mean, think of a number of, I'm thinking of Sudan right now, for example. That's something that people who live in Sudan live with constantly, the fear of the roving wars, and we don't. And that's one of the things that liberal center cares about. But Wednesday, I believe, a right-wing activist named Charlie Kirk was shot at a college in Utah and died from his wounds. And in the immediate aftermath of that, which, it's a little ironic that last time I did one of these, I said, there's one thing that I won't write about and I won't talk about, because never is it a good thing under any circumstances. And that, of course, was violence by guns.
Did I just rewind by accident? What's going on?
And this is no exception. I mean, it's a non-starter, but it happens in the United States, especially. So what was interesting to me was what happened in the aftermath of that horrific shooting. And I don't mean for Mr. Kirk's family, who he has apparently a young wife and anybody is trying to get you to make a snap.
Dude, yeah.
We saw it in a really, really big way, because immediately after an event happens, we don't know.
Dude, did I rewind that by accident?
The radical right doubled down on the idea that this shooting was by somebody, as they said, on the left. And once again, let me reiterate that in the United States of America, the vast majority of Americans
I'm sorry.
Of a rules-based international order, so that we don't have to worry about going to wars all the time, as many countries do. I mean, think of a number of, I'm thinking of Sudan right now, for example. That's something that people who live in Sudan live with constantly, the fear of the roving wars, and we don't.
Okay,
and
so forgive me if I were wrong.
For a number of reasons, that it is, it's oppressing them, or that it is corrupt because it's not Christian, or they feel that it's interrupted the natural hierarchies of things. The right wants to get rid of that system. Then there is the left, and the left has a similar critique of that liberal center, believing that it was formed on a system of laws and a constitution that was so poisoned by racism and sexism from the very beginning, and perhaps classism from the very beginning, that it can't really be redeemed. So it needs to be taken down and started again. And that's true of both the left and the right. Now, in the moment we're in this moment, they're very different. I mean,
we're in this moment,
characterized by different economic and political systems, but that idea of attacking the middle is on both sides. In the moment we're in, the radical right actually holds an enormous amount of power. They have the presidency, they have the Supreme Court, they have control of the House of Representatives. A lot of them have control of the Senate if they work together with those liberal.
The radical right. You see how she uses these words. She's been doing this her whole career. What is her career nowadays anyway? What does she get paid for? We've asked. Now this is her job, apparently. She says, the radical right. What's the radical right? Is it the populism that arose with the rise of Donald Trump? Is it the popular vote that Donald Trump received? I know. More people voted for someone else. I know. I know what y'all say. I know. But he did sort of get the popular vote though, right? So the radical right, if you want to just clarify what you mean by that, has a lot of power, the House, the Senate. But I thought that there were divisions in MAGA, like you like to say. I thought there were divisions in MAGA. Right, no divisions in the Democratic Party, but I thought that there were divisions in MAGA. And I thought Trump was a dictator. So I don't know why we're not seeing more firing squads, really, if we're talking about dictatorship and Trump's such a dictator. And I know that you clarified recently that it's not about rising fascism, and you don't really want to use the big F word so much, even though you used it all last year. You want to talk about authoritarianism, maybe because it's like a little softer, and we don't want to get, fascism fatigue. If he was such a dictator. But anyway, so just wanted to confirm who the radical right is.
Liberal Republicans. At all.
About Republican? Are you talking about Republicans, honey? They have control, right? They have the House, they have the Senate, and they have the executive branch. But they are not running to push things through. And I know you're going to bring up the Epstein files, which nobody cared. Y'all didn't care about. And actually the term Epstein files wasn't even a thing until Pam Bondi started talking about the Epstein files in February of last year, I think it was. Is it a manipulation ring? Oh my gosh, the word. Not manipulation. What time is it? Is it late? Is it that late? Do I need sleep? 9:30? A bribery ring? Yeah. So, is it that? Like, what is the deal with that? I know you guys think Trump's on the list, because they never would have brought it out in 2016 when he ran the first time. right? They wouldn't have brought it out in 2020 when they tried to beat him then, but then we had a stolen election. So, but I guess now in 2025, while he's in office, let's just we got to demand that we release the Epstein files. Let's release the Epstein files, okay? Anyway, the radical right. Go on. I think what you mean to say are Republicans. And then when you say the left doesn't have any power, I think what you mean maybe are the Democrats, because they don't really have any leadership. They don't really have any energy. We've seen the whole just horrible pulling Biden out. I mean, I know it's been just about a year now. Pulling that whole horrible thing that happened to Biden and then putting Kamala in there. We saw the whole thing. We saw them rolling out AOC and Bernie Sanders on the Fight the Oligarchy tour. I don't know what, I don't know where your leadership is. So I think when you mean like who doesn't have power, I think you mean, but if you want to talk about the left not having any power, I don't know what, more gaslighting, and we are talking about a specific, the old left is something different. This new rising, what we call actually is a radical subsect here of the left, I suppose, of liberals. Now, that most people don't agree with, and it's actually done a lot of harm to the Democratic Party, as you know.
Point, that if in fact the left were doing to Americans what the right is, I'd be all over that, but they're not. So I'm not concerned. So immediately the radical right started to scream that this shooting came from the left. But what they meant was not just the ideological left. They tried to make that into everybody who was not MAGA. And again, they were screaming about how, and there were reproductions in traditional media of ridiculous stories, like the idea that somehow there was writing on a bullet that indicated that the shooter was sharing a transgender ideology. Which is a lot to write on a bullet, I just have to say. I'm sorry, that was snarky, but come on. There are a lot of rumors out there, a lot of conspiracy theories out there. And when that happened, a lot of people who are liberals, or even those who slide, to the far side of liberalism toward the left, started to say, in order to defend themselves against these attacks, they started to lionize Kirk as champion of democratic discourse, for example, that he was doing it right, as Gavin Newsom said. And that was a really interesting rewriting of Kirk's actual career. And that, to me, is a form of disrespect. If somebody has lived their life in a certain way, when they have most tragically been killed, the last thing you want to do is rewrite who.
I'm sorry. So you think that he was not for civil discourse when literally nobody did what he did? Nobody. Who in the Democratic Party did what he did? And please don't tell me about Fight the Oligarchy tour. They tried to. They got burned out. I mean, I think Candace Owens does it. Who goes around to college campuses and has a large following, a large online presence, whether you agree with him or not? Who did what he did? Who went around to all the colleges in the way that he did? I know you went on a book tour. I know it made you really tired, and you put a lot of work in. I know you talked about it a lot. It's hard being a #1 bestseller on the New York Times list. I know. But for you to criticize people right now in this moment, which is what you're doing, you're criticizing people for saying that they're rewriting who he was. I feel like I'm gonna do the conservative ant thing where I like hit my phone on the camera. You didn't know who Charlie Kirk was. You don't know what MAGA is. You lie about Trump every chance you get. You to understand where he was coming from or why people supported him. If you did, you didn't show us. Okay? So you cannot then lecture everybody on saying that people are now revising who he was, who he lived his whole life as, when we have an entire collection of all of these other people who have said the opposite, who actually did know who Charlie Kirk was. They did have a personal relationship with him. And one of those people is our Vice President, JD Vance. This makes you all tingly. You're very uncomfortable right now. It's very triggering. I get it. I do. He hosted President JD Vance and his wife brought Charlie home from Utah to Arizona. And he hosted the Charlie Kirk show yesterday, did a beautiful job bringing in Tucker Carlson and Bobby Kennedy and Stephen Miller and the 3 men who worked with Charlie, who knew him very well. You don't have to agree with this. And in fact, you obviously don't, and you're trying to lie and confuse people. You're trying to lie and confuse to your audience about all of this. So it's not just that you don't disagree, you're trying to subvert the truth. And so instead of just not fucking speaking about it, right? Or just not doing what you're doing, which is what you always do. And then you say like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm editorializing. It's like, again, I'm sorry, I hate to tell you, but your whole show is pretty much editorializing. But you say that you just report the facts, or you just report that you're not editorializing. That's the problem, is because your audience is getting so much bad information. And if they're in the echo chamber of just Facebook, I'm hoping that maybe if they go to YouTube, because you're channeling them to YouTube, but then they're going to be exposed to a bunch of schmucks over there too. But at least maybe they'll get more of a diverse, right? Real diversity of ideas. Maybe they'll learn something new if they're still able to. So you didn't know who Charlie was, and it's not for you to say like how, and you're saying, oh, it's so disrespectful. Girl, like so disrespectful to do this. I don't know what's up. So that's wrong.
They were. And if there was one thing that Charlie Kirk was not, it was somebody who believed in the idea of open and honest debate to achieve.
Dude, even people like Essie Cupp, Sarah Elizabeth, who we talk about on CNN, she goes on CNN, even she said Charlie Kirk would not want like crackdowns of freedom of speech. Even people who adamantly disagreed with Charlie Kirk says that he was a huge advocate for free speech. Like that's why he did what he did. Why would he do that? Why would he say people who disagree, oh, for the hits, Nikki, for the views, because he was a grifter, Nikki, that's why. Okay, what, the man can't make money off of his hard work and labor and sacrifice? He can't make money off of his hard work, just like you would want to? And we can talk about how much money you're making, Heather, if that's even true. So let's just, again, yeah, to say, who he wasn't. What are you even talking about?
An outcome greater good. So let me explain to you who he was, because some people didn't know who he was. He was a 31-year-old activist for the far right, and he grew prominence in fall of 2016 after the election of Donald Trump the first time. And he was a college dropout. He'd been to, I think, a semester of community college. And the way he got attention was in, I believe it was November of 2016, he started a website called the Professor Watch List. And the idea was to
she'll tell you,
draw attention to people working in colleges and universities who he said were indoctrinating America's youth and were un-American. Now, I had personally in that time, because I was one of the inaugural people on the, I've written about it. You can Google that, because it went viral when I wrote about it way back there in 2017. But the idea behind that was twofold. One, it was very obviously a money-making scheme. And this is part of the radical right that we don't talk a lot about, the degree to which it is possible simply to warn people that there is some great attempt out there to destroy America, and give me money and I will fix it. There's actually a wonderful book that was written about the roots of that, and I'm afraid the title of it is escaping me right now. But this goes all the way back to the 1950s, to the idea that people would literally go to high school, I will save America against communism if you just write me a check. It became sort of a right-wing. This was at least in part what the Professor Watch List was about. I will monitor these professors, just send me money so I can do it. But the other side of that was to dox people. And doxing is a verb that means you call attention to people by using their names. And
she's like the Croat. Control F, doxing is a verb. Dude, I've already watched this, but I mean, I'm catching something else. Doxing is a verb. What is happening?
Usually their phone numbers and their addresses, so that they are swarmed with hate, and they become so frightened they shut up. And that attempt to dox people was at the heart of the Professor Watch List. Now, after I responded as I did, I got taken off the watch list, and I've been put back on it.
She's back on it.
At some point, I didn't know where. I actually looked today to see if I was still on it, because I wrote a letter tonight. I mentioned that, and I am still on it. But I came back. I was off for a while, and then I came back. But and I was never terribly hurt by the watch list. I believe that he probably got my name from something stupid a long time ago, an article I wrote for a children's magazine that attracted the wrath of some people in the American South, because I had defended Lincoln, actually.
That's why.
Very bland.
I'm sure the reason you were on the watch list is because you defended Lincoln in some children's book. Somebody wrote an article about it long ago. I'm sure that's why you're on the list, because you defended Lincoln. Okay.
Of writing. And I had never, ever been in any way a controversial teacher. You've heard me. I'm not controversial.
Oh, good. That's good.
And I think it was just an attempt to grab any names he could find before this became a thing. So,
well, if not, he basically could go into the future, because you started this very heavily, I think in like 2020, 2021, maybe, I'm not sure. So he could see, he had foreknowledge, I think.
Like I say, I wasn't terribly affected by it, but I have friends, a number of friends and acquaintances who were very badly affected by it. That is, their faces and their names, their employers and their home addresses were flashed on the Fox News channel, for example, and their lives were simply turned into hell. And that is not the way that one conducts debate, honest debate. And so this idea somehow that there was an attempt to rehabilitate him as this pro-democracy figure was just weird. After he started this, the Professor Watch List, he did in fact get a lot of investor money, and began an organization called Turning Point USA. which attempted to attack what he considered left-wing indoctrination in all of education. And that, it became sort of a hostile thing for a while. I hadn't really seen much about it in a while, but then he took this to college campuses to sort of do this traveling show where he would debate people who disagreed with him in something called Prove Me Wrong, which was interesting because he was not a college age student. He was 31 years old when he was murdered. And it was a little, that's kind of weird. I mean, there's a big difference between a 31 year.
Right. She's trying to say that it was weird that he was debating college kids. He was a little bit older than college kids, but that would be like the right age for a mentor. Even a little bit of a mentor. And he could relate to kids because he was close to their age, and he wasn't hard on kids. He wasn't hard on the students. I mean, he was, as they got into like one particular interaction, but he has said if there was a professor or somebody that would come and he found out that they were a professor or whoever they were, he would say, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to push you a little bit. I'm going to challenge you a little bit more since you're not just a student. And if you did any legwork for this god awful live stream that you did, you would know that, but you didn't. And you're just basically defaming and slandering the deceased. It's just shame. Like my great grandma Martha would say, shame on you.
Year old and an 18-year-old. And so I'm not sure how much longer he was going to be able to keep that shtick going. But the trick to him was that he was the person who really managed to wed right-wing activism to the modern social media world that younger people inhabited. So he was sort of in your face, and he was somebody that the older generation of mag,
because you're not in our face either, by the way.
Really expected could go a long way in the movement, because he was one of them, but he also connected with a younger group of people, especially young men. His language was incredibly inflammatory.
But he actually connected with people, but his language was inflammatory. And the only reason that people connected with his racism and his white supremacy is because people are naturally racist and white supremacists, right? His language was quite inflammatory. I think your language is quite inflammatory, to be honest. I do. I feel assaulted every time I have to watch this garble.
He was racist. He was sexist. He was all those things.
He was racist. He was sexist. Right. You're going to continue again to defame and slander the deceased when you're making a judgment about him. Show the video. No, let's have a watch party. Let's play the clip where Charlie Kirk is racist. Are you going to play the clip of him talking about Joy Reid and the long thing that they're saying that the specific clip that they're using to say that he was racist? Is that the clip that you're going to use? You're going to show us? Let's have a watch party. Let's see all the times that Charlie Kirk was racist. In fact, let's find a clip where he says, I'm racist. Let's find that clip. Oh, they don't say, okay.
But he did seem to be able to draw this bridge that that other people had not managed to do. You know, you think about the right wing before him, it sort of seemed kind of nerdy and it didn't seem cool. He managed to look clean cut and make it cool, or seemingly to make it cool. So as soon as the shooting happened, there's this outpouring insisting that he was the target of the left, insisting that people who were not MAGA were celebrating his death. I didn't see that absolutely anywhere, and I was online significantly that day. There was an outpouring.
Then you would have seen the video of him being murdered, and you were on the internet significantly that day. It's Friday. You did this video on Friday. He died on a Wednesday in the middle of the day. Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, because you posted this in the evening. So you had 3 days to see all those videos of those people. Like, they made videos of them. They made, clips of them, real TikTok videos of real people. You may not identify with those people because, like I said, it's this neo left, this new left that is radical. They are a subsect that most people don't agree with. Y'all need to just call out your assholes. Y'all need to purge and just call them out. They took down your entire party, but you guys cultivated this with the language and the messaging and the policies and all that stuff. You guys did this. You guys doubled down on all this stuff. You guys made it part of your platform, and it didn't work. So you need to just call this stuff out for what it is. Get out of there. You know what I mean? Cut your losses and run. Call it out for what it is and just get out of there. Quit trying to make it, yes, these are the psychos. You know what I mean? Like, call them out. Call them out. What harm would that do for you? It would only make it easier and better for you.
Liberals and most of the left, maybe there were some people who thought that he was, live by the sword, die by the sword, because he was quoted. There's a video of him talking about how if we have to have deaths to support the Second Amendment, that's fair because we need that to support our greater rights. And people posted that. But the radical right created this atmosphere that somehow people who weren't MAGA were cheering on political violence. And in order to back away from that, some of the people in that space started to defend him as being an exemplar of democratic value.
Oh, I see what you're trying to do. Okay, what you're saying. Okay, so you're saying that anybody who wasn't MAGA, and then if they weren't MAGA, they were afraid of being canceled. So then they tried to make him be this exemplar person that he wasn't. Gotcha. No. And if you're talking about Gavin Newsom, call out Gavin Newsom specifically. Quit trying to make these broad statements of anybody that wasn't MAGA. And then if anybody that wasn't MAGA was afraid of being canceled, so then they decided to make him exemplar him or whatever, make him this hero that he wasn't, because they were afraid of cancel culture. You are misrepresenting so many different factions and real people and reality. Just call out Gavin Newsom and say Gavin Newsom is a Democrat, and he, based on what I've seen wait a second. Wasn't he interviewed by Charlie Kirk? Wasn't he on the Charlie Kirk show? Was that the show that he was on, and we were like, why is Charlie Kirk platforming Gavin Newsom? Yeah. So call out Gavin Newsom would know Charlie Kirk better than you. So now you're criticizing him, judging him, thinking that he's only doing it because he doesn't want to be censored. He's the most blasphemous, derogatory, divisive, corrupt politician there is. So, and I will also say that I know people who I think have expressed more liberal views on Facebook. They're actually, I've seen them also say recently, this is wrong, period. This is wrong, period. Or I didn't agree with his views, but this is wrong, period. Not saying I didn't agree with his views, this is wrong, and then this whole other story about how they're the victim and how he was murdered by a firearm that he supported.
Which again, I feel like if you have one thing that you should take with you after your life on Earth, it's how you presented yourself. You had all those years.
I'm sorry, Heather. You said if there's anything that you should take with you when you die, it's how you presented yourself. Honey, girl, it's okay. You don't have to, this isn't, this isn't about you. And he did do that. And it's not for you to judge his afterlife. And he was very clear about his afterlife. And he was very clear in many interviews, one that has become more popularized now, with him being saying he wants to be remembered for his faith, actually. So if you want to talk about what Charlie Kirk wanted to be remembered by, in his own words, it was that he was a man of faith, and that he followed his faith and believed in his faith and lived by his faith. And you would make the argument very poorly, like the other schmucks on Facebook, that he didn't, that he was a racist. And how can you be a Christian and a racist? How can you be a Christian and a white supremacist? How can you have Christian values and be so hateful and spiteful and xenophobic and a bigot and all the names, transphobe, all the names coming from you, the exemplar Christian that you are, right? You're a Christian, right? No? Oh, you're not? Oh. Okay, well, tell me more about how somebody can take with them when they die, how they live their life.
Just to do it, why would somebody suddenly change who you were? I'm sorry, that was editorializing, but that has a lot to do with my theories of history. Anyway,
oh my God.
So all this was going on. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, said that, blamed this on the radical left, all kinds of stuff. Now, what happened was that today, the FBI had been seemingly posting more on social media than they were being able to find this person. And there's been a big hullabaloo about that. But this morning, it turned out that a young man who is, at least now, the only suspect in the shooting, a man named Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old, turned himself into police and confessed to the crime. And that changed things, because it certainly appears right now that Tyler Robinson is from a Republican family in Utah. He was raised as a Mormon, and he was deeply immersed in, or appears to have been deeply immersed in gamer culture and in a division of MAGA called the Groypers. Now, again, they're still gathering information, but the important story here is that MAGA has a lot of splits. I've talked to you about that before. And there is a significant portion of the younger group of MAGA.
Yeah. All the splits, like how she tried to make the case that Adam Kissinger and Liz Cheney were starting their own party,
who actually don't like the sort of centrism relatively. I mean, he's not a centrist, but don't like the mainstream nature of people like Charlie Kirk. And so they have been.
Oh, so there's people that don't like the mainstream nature and centristness, even though he's not, of Charlie Kirk. So they don't think that he's Republican enough or far right enough, or what are you saying? Because then how can you call him a far right activist if you're saying that there's other people that are more far to the right than he is? I don't know.
Attacking him in public now for a while. And the Groypers are a group that takes a version of Pepe the Frog as their mascot and follows a man named Nick Fuentes, who is a white nationalist who thinks that people like Charlie Kirk don't go far enough. And it appears at this point as if that's the group with whom Robinson is associated. So all of a sudden, we're in this really weird moment where, as somebody said, those influencers on the radical right have gone from the Old Testament to the New Testament in a real hurry. They've gone from, we're going to get all these people on the left to, let's pray for him and, he will,
Shame on you. Shame on you. Very devious, very nefarious, and I would say demonic. Really. You're saying that people were saying that the shooter was from the left. And now you're saying it appears with no evidence at all, none, that we have this came out Friday. It's now Tuesday. Nobody from the official story, which is what you say, nobody from the official story has said that the shooter was affiliated with Nick Fuentes and the groupers. If that's how you say it. I don't know how to say it. Like grouper, Mr. Grouper, whatever the word. None of it is from the official story. So for you to act so virtuous, like you sat on this story for 2 days just to wait it out and see and just present the facts, why would you speculate like this and say it appears? You're giving this to your audience. You're feeding this to your audience. And then you're saying, oh, well, the far right Charlie Kirk supporters, they all immediately said it was somebody on the left. Well, MSNBC and places like that were saying, oh, maybe it was a supporter whose gun went off. Really? After we all saw the video? We all saw it. We all saw it right away. That horrific video. We all saw it. That's the person who you think was just his gun went off? The gun that you're not allowed to bring into the event just went off? It was just some rando on a college campus at the Charlie Kirk event, right? After you've made this big case about him, just some random thing we don't know. And then to say that all of the conservative or whatever you're saying to the far right, they went from saying it was the left to then now that your Groyper story came out, it appears. Now they went from saying, which is not true, no, from their position of it was on the left. Nobody did that. You're saying that happened. That never happened. You're saying, oh, they went, now that we found out that it's a Nick Fuentes, somebody affiliated with him or his group, I should say. Can't do anything around here. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here because duty calls. Okay, so yes. So then to say that it went from being from the people from the criticizing, saying it was somebody on the left to, oh, now we're just going to pray for him. That didn't happen. Nobody went from saying it had to have been somebody on the left to now this story that you're saying appears, acting like he's now somebody from the right because he came from a Republican family. Is that what you're saying? He came from a Republican family. But it's now been discovered that that he was radicalized with these liberal ideas, right? With his live-in boyfriend who was transitioning, right? It just wouldn't make sense for it to be from somebody that was there to support church. It wouldn't make sense. So you're trying to make the argument that it wasn't just that it was a Republican, because it's somebody that came from a Republican family. What would be their beef with Charlie Kirk? So then, in order for your story to make sense, to try and prove that he wasn't from the left, as you're saying, which you're saying MAGA was saying, you have to add the Nick Fuentes part of it, which was never part of the official story. Some lady said it on CNN. It was never a part of the official story.
let's hope that this sort of thing doesn't happen any longer. But I think there are some lessons to take from this personally. One of them that I hope we can really push on is stop making these fast assumptions about who is doing what, because we just don't know. I mean, literally, it could have been absolutely anything. And that's one of the things really to remember.
No,
that
it couldn't have been.
That until we really know what's happening, you have to assume we don't know. It could literally have been somebody he cut off in traffic who got mad at him. And you just don't know. So urging people to take a breath is a good thing, but also recognizing that the radical right at this point is inciting political violence.
No, they're
simply
not.
are.
No, they're not. They simply are. The radical right is inciting violence.
No other way to look at it.
There's no other way to look at it. How are they doing that? No, you're making the claim. How are they doing that? They simply are. Those are some very, very powerful words that you're sharing with your audience, right? With your 3 million followers on Facebook, right? Followers on Substack. You're the highest paid Substack writer on Substack. So why don't you tell us then how all of this is coming from the radical right? Is that what you're saying? The radical, who is that? Like, be very clear. If you're going to make these extreme, bold statements, be very clear, and don't just say, oh, simply because. Who is paying to be a subscriber to your newsletter?
And a lot of people wrote to me and said, is this it? Is this
what?
Oh, come on.
How are y'all the
victims? Is this that moment?
How are y'all the victims here in this? I just don't get it, how you guys are being oppressed still. You guys had a president for 4 years. You had Obama for 8 years, and you had Biden for 4 years. How are you guys still the victim and oppressed? Like, because you just felt so attacked, from the Trump administration. And I know what you've said about January 6th. You've just carried that. You just are always feeling like you're being attacked. How are you the victim in this situation? Except that speech does have consequences, doesn't it? Especially when you lie to people and your stories don't add up.
When we go to civil war, and I can't believe I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, is this that moment? And what I would say to you is, once again, this is an extremely small group of extremists. In a moment like that, the thing that
I'm sorry, a small group of extremists. I'm sorry, what a small group of extremists? Yeah. So I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the neo-left that we're talking about? Like, it's a small group of extremists? I'm just not sure what you're talking about.
Trying to model is, don't rush to the worst case scenario. The more that you can sort of pour oil on the waters and say, we don't know. Political violence is never okay.
We don't know, but that's not what you're doing. You're not saying we don't know.
We don't know. We need to wait, because so many times something bad happens because too many people jump too fast. And going forward, I'm really hoping people might have seen what happens in an event like this, when something as horrible as a shooting happens. And it turns out, just a few hours after, a few minutes even after the shooting in Utah, there was another one in Colorado, a school shooting in Colorado, in which the shooter ended up taking his own life, and 2 other students were wounded. And of course, everybody was traumatized. And in that case, that was also somebody on the far right. And you really have to understand what's happening in a society. And in order to do that, you have to look honestly about what was happening. And in both of those cases, those people appear to have been radicalized by the right.
Oh
Now, it is certainly possible to radicalize people in different ways
my
than
God.
that. But in this moment, we have a problem with the urging of political violence on the American right. And, I've talked a lot about my belief that that comes from the lionizing of the cow.
That's not true, because all the school shooters have been trans or, right? So how can you say that all the violence is coming from the right? Unless, trans people that are trans or are confused or like they were transitioning or whatever, like look at the whole thing, look at their whole
cowboy individualist myth. And, the initial relationship between the Republican Party and the politicized National Rifle Association, or NRA, which was not a political organization when I was a kid. They used to come into our schools and teach us how to use guns. They're the first gun course I ever had. I think I was even a junior member at one point, because they were a gun safety organization and they wanted guns used carefully. That changed dramatically in the 1980s when they became affiliated with the Republican Party and really pushing big business, and especially the gun manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers, which are both very, very big businesses. And the Republican Party gets increasingly involved in the NRA, and the NRA gets increasingly.
2 people were injured in that shooting, right? And the shooter killed himself. But what was the story with that shooter? I don't know. But yeah, for her to lump, we're not mainly talking about
politicized until you end up with where we are now, where the NRA is not a huge player anymore. It went bankrupt a few years ago, but you have so ingrained the identity of guns into a certain group of people that they have become sort of a gateway into a political ideology. And I think you can see this through the use of gun imagery on Christmas cards, for example, which is, bonkers if you think about it. And certainly not something I grew up with, again, with guns everywhere, but nobody ever would have posed on a Christmas card with their children with guns. It simply wouldn't be done. So we do have this issue in the United States, and it's one that we all need to address. Obviously I talk about it a lot. But those are the lessons I think we should take from this moment, that this was a real attempt to take advantage of a horrific murder in order to score political points. And anybody who's trying to score political points off of someone's death is not going in a good direction.
Honey, the leader of the move, of Turning Point, right? He was the face of a movement. Okay, he wasn't the movement. He was a faction of it that did a lot of work when it came to getting out the vote, working with the incoming Trump administration, candidate Trump, getting people together. He played a role with Kennedy, and Bobby Kennedy goes on and talks about that. Just the work and the networking and the relationships that Charlie Kirk helped to build, and then also the energy that he facilitated on college campuses with voting age people. Everybody's trying to score political points. Is there naturally some of that just as a natural consequence? Yeah, because y'all fucked up on this one. So I'm not just you, but like, yeah. But the optics of the Democratic Party and everything is a complete mess. So I wouldn't expect you to understand. Gavin Newsom wish he could take advantage of this politically. He can't. And the best thing he could do is to come out, I guess, with a statement. But remember, Gavin Newsom was on the Charlie Kirk podcast, and we were like, what is Charlie Kirk doing? Why is he platforming Gavin Newsom? Look at that. Look, was Charlie Kirk divisive then when he was platforming Newsom?
Especially when they're going off before anybody has any idea what really happened. And the idea is to get people out there, get them angry, get their emotions flowing. And now that the news has come out that it's not what people thought, to let the thing fall away, and people are just left with the impression that some left-wing person committed this murder of this decent man, when that's really a misreading entirely of what happened there. So the more that we can say political violence is never okay, and in this case, it was certainly appears to have been a radicalization of a young man on the right.
Oh my God, she keeps saying it. Keep saying it over and over again, and try and make it true.
Not somebody on the left, and recognize that that's the reality of what.
Recognize that that's the reality. You're all going to turn the page. We're going to turn the page on this, and you're going to recognize that this is the reality. Ooh, turn the page.
Happened here. Now, while that was happening, we missed a lot of other things that didn't get covered in the media. And this is one of the things that really bothers me a lot when you get one of these flashpoint stories, is that, you know, I tend to look at how is this going to play out.
Oh, she's so inconvenienced by Charlie Kirk's public assassination. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's about 20 more minutes left in this horrendous live stream. We didn't even get to the 1 to 2 from today, because I do want to track the trajectory of this story. So we have to finish watching this, or maybe we'll skip, and then we're going to read her surrender. I mean, her apology. I mean, her go easy on me Monday letter that she published. She didn't talk about it. I don't know. We'll talk about it. And then she did go live today, and she did not make a retraction. Wasn't from what, and that the boy did have a connection to trans, like that he did the conversation coming out that his, you know, firearms to yeah, be radicalized, you know, in college, but also with however, you know, whatever was going on. And if you want to talk about not knowing, because you're just talking about the official story, which is what we're talking about too, there's a lot of suspicion about what happened. So we're just talking about the official story. We're just talking about what you're saying. But there's a lot of speculation. Of course, there's going to be some sort of a patsy, right? There's going to be like, who is behind this, right? And that's what people on the right, as you say, are trying to figure out. That's what even public figures are talking about, asking questions. I mean, Candace Owens has a lot to say about that. You know, who are the people behind this that are responsible for this? You know, not to like, was it just this one? Like he just all of a sudden on his own. The arguments that they're making about him being part of a group or whatever, like going back and forth about it. Yeah, you're right. We don't know. So we're just trying to follow the official story, and then also like use our brains and think like, I wonder about this or this or this or this or this. But all the internet's talking about it. So I know a lot of your people who don't know how to use the internet very well, but maybe one day. So anyway.
150 years. And far more important in the longer term, I think.
Just go out with dignity here. Very good. Okay, well, the internet's okay. So thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight and chugging through this. I hope the internet wasn't terrible. I hope it wasn't too bad. And thanks, and I'll catch you next time.